There are 6 rules in your school that your principal will never tell you about. And to tell you the truth, they ought to be illegal. And the reason why is because they're quietly costing you your health. And I know that because it nearly cost me mine. In fact, 86% of teachers in America say that the job has damaged their mental health. And over 60% of teachers say that they're already burned out. And most of them have no idea why. So in this video, I'm going to share all 6 of these rules. And after you hear them, you'll never see school the same way again. Before I get into the first rule, I actually made something for you because I don't want you to just watch a video and go away empty-handed. I want to give you something that'll actually help you change things in your teaching career. It's called the Reclaim Your Limits Guide. It's free, it's 100% free, and it's always free. And it'll help you establish the boundaries that you need to protect your personal, professional, and your relational health. The link's in the description, or you can scan the QR right there on the screen. Now let's talk about 6 rules that your administration won't tell you. Rule number 1 is silence is survival. Early in my career, I learned that there were things that happened in education that they didn't function right, they didn't work the way that they should have, and I had to say something about it, and I did say things about it. I said things about it that were professional, things that were constructive, but over time, I learned to just stay quiet. It's not because I didn't care, it's because I'd already learned what happens when you speak up. You get pushback. Even when you're not confrontational, even when you're measured, even whenever you're professional. And if the pushback doesn't silence you, something else will. It's a phrase, and it's one that I've heard so many times that I don't care to recount it. And the phrase is this: you just got to see the big picture. And I want to just kind of hang out right there because I've thought about this phrase a lot. And what I want to know is, what is the big picture? And more importantly, I want to know, am I a part of the big picture? Are teachers a part of the big picture? Or is the big picture just data, test scores, and metrics, numbers that travel up and down the chain from the school to the district, while the people generating those numbers or causing those things to happen are quietly falling apart in their classrooms? And here's what nobody tells you whenever you sign your contract, is that your voice is considered to be a variable to be managed, not an asset to be developed. And so what you learn is what every other teacher learns, is that you have to stay silent. And the reason why is not because you don't care or because you're weak, it's because in this system, silence is survival. But let me tell you what silence costs you. It costs you your sense of professional identity. It costs you the belief that your expertise matters. And over time, it costs you something even harder to recover. And it costs the courage to trust your own judgment. So if you're like me and you've had to swallow some things that were pretty important and you just didn't want to speak up because you didn't want the pushback, if you've ever driven home replaying the thing that you should have said in your head, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're responding to a rule that's never been written down, and yet it's enforced every single day. Rule number 2, you're the system shock absorber. For the last 7 years, I've served my school as the dean of students. And I want to be honest with you about something. I believed going into that role, I thought that my job was all about discipline, structure, and order. And I thought that I understood exactly what I was walking into. But I could not have been more wrong. My real job, the one that's not in my contract, is that I am a psychologist. I'm a mental health counselor. I'm an investigator. I'm campus security, all at once. None of those roles have I ever been trained for, and none of those roles am I compensated for. It's as if the school got 5 people in one. And here's what I want you to understand. It's not like that's something unique to my own school district, because a Pew Research survey of more than 2,500 public school teachers found that educators all across the country describe themselves in almost identical terms. They say we're therapists, we're nurses, we're social workers, we're parents, and we're entertainers. One teacher put it this way, and I'm trying to paraphrase it just a little bit because it kind of stuck with me. It says, we do so much more than teach that we don't even have time to plan so that we can teach because we're so overwhelmed by everything else that's required of us. And here's the thing, that's not a staffing problem. That is a design problem. The system is built exactly this way because it's cheaper to absorb the cost into the teacher than to actually support the student needs. And here's what that causes you emotionally. Whenever you spend your day trying to cure and solve everybody else's pain, students in crisis, family in crisis, situations that you were never trained to navigate, and then you go home and you try to spend time with your own family, or you try to work on your own life, or you try to work on your own health, there's absolutely nothing left for you to give. Emotional exhaustion is the result. And that's not a personality flaw. That's a system outcome. So if you've ever felt like you're drowning drowning at your job that turned out to be 5 jobs in one, you're not struggling because you're not enough. You're struggling because you were being asked to do too much, and nobody ever told you that was coming. Rule number 3, your time is not your own. And I want to be clear about something, because I knew that whenever I went into teaching that it's tough. It's always been tough, and it's always going to be tough. So my eyes were wide open. I was not naive about the demands of the profession, but what I was not ready for is I was not ready for the profession to completely consume my life. I had no idea that I was going to work 15 to 20 hours a week of overtime every single week, unpaid, unacknowledged, but yet it's expected. I also didn't know that the events of the school day were going to follow me home, like a nasty email, or the disrespect of a student, or the bad decisions of an administrator, or a terrible parent that shows up to a meeting and thinks that I'm the cause of all their kids' problems. I had no idea that those things were going to live rent-free inside my head. I didn't know that they would destroy my peace at home. I didn't know that it would steal my sleep at night. And I didn't know, and these are the things that we don't talk about very often, but I didn't know just how deeply some of these things would hurt me and wound me spiritually. And that last one matters to me more than anything, because when we talk about teacher burnout, we always talk about it in terms of mental health statistics or workload data, and all of those things are real. But when something steals your peace and your sleep and begins to erode part of who you are that believes in what you're doing, that's not burnout. That is a spiritual wound, and it doesn't heal in a 3-day weekend. Now, I know that a lot of people hear what I'm saying. You're thinking, man, you're just overblowing it. But I'm not, because a 2004 RAND study of 1,500 teachers demonstrated that 60% of K through 12 teachers report being burned out, and that the stress and the disappointments of teaching made them feel like they were no longer worthy to be a teacher anymore. It's not the hard work. It's the stress, the kind of stress that follows you home and will not let you go. Your contract has hours, but the system does not honor your contract hours. And no one, and I do mean no one, in particular your principal, will never sit you down and tell you that. And the reason why is because they don't have to say it, because it's just built into a system where there's always one more thing to do. There's always one more email. There's always one more crisis that can't wait. There's always something else. And I imagine that you're just like me, that this job has followed you home. It's stolen your sleep. It's consumed your weekends. And it's left you feeling empty in places that have nothing to do with lesson plans. And it makes you feel like you're a failure. It makes you feel like you don't have any boundaries. But the truth of the matter is, we don't have permission to have boundaries. But that changes today. So before I get into rule number 4, I just want to pause for a moment, because if what I described sounds kind of like you, I want you to know that I didn't come here just to tell you about problems. But I built something that'll help you solve this problem, called The Power of Enough. And it's a coaching framework that I developed from my own experience of nearly 2 decades in education, living under the same rules that I'm telling you about today. What is ironic is that I created my own 5 rules that will finally put you back in control of your time, of your energy, of your peace, and of your life. And guess what? It's down in the description box, or you can get it right there at the QR code. And now rule number 4. Feedback is theater. If there's one thing that 2 decades in education has taught me, it's this: the anonymous climate survey, it means nothing. The faculty meeting where they say they want you to share your concerns, it means nothing. The open door policy means nothing. They are nothing more than those people that are above us pretending to listen and pretending to care while taking absolutely no action on the things that we say. Because here's what actually matters to schools: test scores, graduation rates, and let's be honest, the money that follows every single student that walks through our doors. That's what matters. All of your insight, all of your experience, all the frontline knowledge of what's actually going on in the school building and in the school system, none of that fits into the dashboard that our leaders have. And so all of it gets collected, it gets filed, and it gets forgotten. And here's what all that does to you over time. You stop believing that your voice can even change anything. You stop raising your hand. You stop caring about the survey. And eventually, you stop caring about a lot of things, because caring requires believing that something will actually come of what you're doing. So if you've ever filled out a survey knowing that absolutely nothing would change, you're not being cynical. You are being accurate. Rule number 5, your calling is weaponized against you. Most teachers I know didn't come into the profession for the money. They entered it because something inside of them kind of said, this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is my purpose, or I'm going to make a difference in the lives of children. And I want you to know that that calling is real and it's beautiful, but the system knows exactly how to use that calling against you. Let me tell you what happened to me. Several years ago, I was at a school and they needed a football coach. There was absolutely no one to fill the role. And I want to be clear, absolutely abundantly clear. I am not a football coach. I have never been a football coach. That is not my training. It's not my expertise, and it definitely wasn't in my contract. But here's how it was presented to me. It wasn't a demand. It's not a requirement. It's not somebody saying, if you don't do this, you're going to be in big trouble. Rather, it came as a question, a carefully constructed question that sounded something like this. What happens to these kids if there is no team? It's just like that. I was a football coach, not because anybody forced me, not because I was going to get fired, but because I could see kids would be affected, because my calling would not let me walk away from the image of kids not being able to play a sport that they wanted to play. They didn't have to pressure me. They just needed to make sure that I could see the cost of saying no. And I want you to know, that's not an opportunity being presented to you. That is a trap built specifically for people who care, just like you. And guess what? That happens in schools every single day across the country. The extra duty, the unpaid role, the committee that nobody wants to be on. They don't mandate it. They just make sure you can see that if somebody doesn't do this, then the kids are going to suffer. And then they take their hands back and they just simply wait. And eventually somebody comes forward because they know what you're made of. They knew it before they hired you. And here's what that cost you spiritually. Every time your calling is used as leverage, every time your purpose is a mechanism for exploitation, something in you begins to question your very calling. You start to wonder, did I make a mistake? Do I misunderstand? Is there something wrong with me? Now, at Teacher Talk, we're a faith-forward organization, and our key verse is Proverbs chapter 4, verse number 23, that says, above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. This is extraordinarily important. Above all else, of first importance, guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. That's where your creativity comes. That's where your patience comes from. That's where your presence to be with your loved one comes from. And when that calling gets exploited, it affects our heart, and that affects the rest of our life. Rule number 6, keep your private life private. Of all the rules that I'm going to share with you today, this one carries the highest personal cost, because everything else I've shared with you today becomes even more difficult to deal with and manage when you have nobody to help you with it. Isolation is the hardest part about burnout, and I say that from experience. You got to have people that you trust in your life. When I say trust, I mean real trust, the kind of trust where you can walk in and you can say anything that needs to be said and you don't have to worry about it leaving that room. And the truth is, that kind of trust is almost impossible to find inside of a school building. And the reason why is because everybody's trying to survive. Everyone's watching. And if you're making a mistake of sharing your pain with the wrong person, and it only takes one, you'll find out very quickly that your private struggle becomes public currency. I've seen it happen. I've been the victim of that happening. You share something, it's vulnerable, and before the week's out, it's traveled all the way up and down the hallways, through the break room, and it becomes a conversation of like a Dear Abby column before it's all over with. Somehow, it ends up on the front page of the school newspaper, if you still have those. And let me tell you what that does to you. It creates loneliness, the specific loneliness of being surrounded by people and yet you're completely unseen. That is a damage like no other damage can be described. One of the things, as I said earlier, is that I have personally lived all 6 of these rules, and not from a distance. Every single one of them. For nearly 2 decades, I showed up to a system that silenced me, it consumed me, it exploited my calling, and left me more isolated than I've ever felt in my entire life. And yet I keep going. And the reason why is because that's what teachers do. But what happened to me is that one day my body said no. I woke up one day and my face went paralyzed. I couldn't blink my eyes. I couldn't smile. I couldn't close my lips. I couldn't speak. I couldn't get my words out. And I thought I had a stroke. My wife thought I had a stroke. The kids at school thought I had a stroke, but I didn't have a stroke. But what my doctor said is, he said, John, if you don't do something about your stress is going to do something about you. And eventually that became a turning point for me, not because I wanted it to be, but because I didn't have any other choice. And what came out of that season of life, the recovery, the reckoning, the honest look at everything the system had taken from me, is the reason why I do this today. It's the reason why I look in the camera and I talk to teachers that I know are struggling in ways that no one else can possibly understand. So if you're watching this and you kind of see yourself in it, you can recognize some of these rules and how they've affected you. I want to talk to you. I don't want to talk at you, but I want to talk with you. I want to offer you a discovery call, one focused, honest conversation where we look at where you are, what it's costing you, and what reclaiming your life actually looks like from where you are right now. I know that maybe that sounds a little bit scary, but ultimately I ended up in a 3-year coaching relationship, and it literally saved my life and my career. So if you're ready to stop struggling in the same way that I struggled, the link's in the description or the QR's right there on the screen. And so there you have it. 6 rules that your principal will never tell you about. Now, here's the truth. Those are bad, but there are some things that you are doing at home that make those rules even worse. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go check out this video right here and find out about 9 things that you should never do at home as a teacher. Until I see you next time, stay strong and keep teaching.